about using AI to manage your Salesforce apps. We want to talk about how you can save time, track adoption, not miss out on new features you can have inside of your org, secure, modernize your org, and even get AI suggestions on new apps for inside of your org. Just to sort of a sneak peek on what we'll be talking about today, we'll be focusing on the Hubbl Diagnostics installed packages assessor. We launched this capability in December. We've launched a full new UI UX across the product as well. And this includes identifying your out-of-date packages automatically inside your org, as well as getting these AI insights around packages that might be useful for getting the most out of your Salesforce investment. For those of you that haven't met me before, I've been in the ecosystem over 11 years. Joined a consulting partner, Traction on Demand, helped grow it to acquisition by Salesforce in 2022, and since then I've been focused on Hubbl Technologies. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of customers across the ecosystem, through delivery, through pre-sales, through building applications, and also moved into R&D and built the first version of Salesforce's carbon footprinting app in 2018, which was used to calculate their carbon footprint on platform for the first time. This led to Sustainability Cloud, then Net Zero Cloud, and that also awarded us a 2019 Partner Innovation Award for Traction. Now, my background prior to joining the Salesforce ecosystem related to what we're talking about today, I started using AI, neural networks, classification, clustering, machine learning in about 2004, so about 20 years ago at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. So this is where all the fusion experiments are going on. We were doing classification clustering experiments that were focused on national security significance. And then I moved across to the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory, where we were using LCLS, the X-ray laser, to do imaging and using generative AI to reconstruct images on terabyte data sets that we would collect in hours. And we would do it fully autonomously in real time. It was super exciting times. And so to see this wave of Gen AI that's come through, it's been very exciting. And this whole concept of underlying machine learning neural networks inside of Hubbl Technologies is what's driving our platform today. So in terms of an agenda, I want to talk about just sort of three major themes: installed package neglect, why should I care, and how AI can help. Today could be completely interactive. Feel free to ask questions in chat. I'll try to keep track there. If you want to hop on and want to chat as well, happy to have a conversation as well. So let's start off with installed package neglect. So this is a concept that through my research in the ecosystem, I uncovered a few years ago based on looking at the metadata across many Salesforce orgs. And so let's start with that concept of metadata. So metadata, the way that your business is basically set up inside of Salesforce, is a really interesting concept. And back in 2020, actually 1 year ago in the Q4 results, Mark Benioff, I listened to these Salesforce earnings calls for 10 years. I've been listening to every one of them. And in that call, he started saying the word metadata over and over and again. It just blew me away because I had never, ever heard him say those words before. And so I actually went back and looked at the Salesforce transcripts, the earnings call transcripts, and found that he mentioned it 26 times in that call. And that was a massive outlier at that time. And it's very clear to us now why that was the case. Benioff was putting the baseline down around the importance of metadata across Salesforce and the way that AI agents and now Agentforce can leverage that metadata in your organization. So it's clearly an important concept that we all need to really dig into. And there's a lot of metadata in an org. So the way your business sets up, we all get Salesforce to automate processes and help manage our data. The average org has about 24,000 pieces of metadata in it. This is we uncovered inside of our benchmark report research a couple of years ago, and that's a huge amount of metadata. What does that mean? So all those objects, the workflows that are now moving to flows, the triggers, all that automation in your org, there's 24,000 of them in there on average. Some orgs have hundreds of thousands. And if you went in to like translate into real meaning, if you went in and clicked on each one of those for 5 seconds and looked at them for 5 seconds, it would take you 4 days of continuous clicking just to go through it. So there's no real way for humans to do this. No one actually does it. And so that makes it challenging to manage what's going on inside your org at times. Now, what's interesting for what we're talking about today is that in most orgs, 25% of the metadata is namespaced. And a huge amount of that actually comes inside of custom fields as well. And so this concept of namespace metadata, it may be one that you've heard of or you've never heard of, but something we should really dig into, because what is that namespace metadata and why should you actually care about it? This is a critical theme in terms of understanding what we're going into today around packages and apps and how AI can help. So let's look at the Salesforce API name notation. So think about this, you buy some licenses from Salesforce, they give you access to, for example, Sales Cloud. And those are core objects in Salesforce that you've turned on. Those objects, if you look at them in Salesforce setup, they will have no prefixes in their name. They'll have no suffix. It's just, for example, the contact object is called contact. Now, if you are looking at a custom object and you created a custom object in your org, so let's as a really bad example, let's pretend you created the contact object. That contact object will get a suffix on it, and it'll have that $_C on it. And so now you can tell the difference between the core object and the custom object you created. Now, a namespace object, it actually has a namespace on it, which is a prefix before that. So if you install a package in your org, it will come most of the time with a prefix in it that denotes that it's actually namespaced. And so that namespacing is what allows you to tell the difference between the core objects that Salesforce has provided, custom objects that you've created in there, and then custom objects that were created by a package you installed. And this translates across all the metadata. So if it's triggers or Apex classes, whatever it is you're working in your org, it'll have those namespaces in it. There's an article on Salesforce Ben I wrote that digs into these details in much more depth, gives you a sense of this concept of notation as well. But wait a minute, what are these installed packages that we're talking about that provide these namespaces? Installed packages are coming from the App Exchange. So we all know the App Exchange. It's been around for almost 20 years now, and this is a slide or a graphic from Salesforce celebrating the 10 million installs of App Exchange apps, which was pretty incredible back in 2022, so it's 2 years ago. Everybody knows App Exchange apps. It's an incredible concept that has been massively valuable to people maximizing their investment on Salesforce. And why is it so powerful? Well, App Exchange apps are security reviewed. There's over 7,000 of them available. And so now over 91% of the customers have installed at least one App Exchange app in their Salesforce org. From our research, we've seen the average org has about 30 packages in it, and many of them have well over 200 packages in them. So there's a lot to manage. So those are the Salesforce App Exchange apps. There's all kinds of amazing stuff on the App Exchange, definitely worth digging into. But there's also other types of installed packages. There's something called private listings. And so private listings are not security reviewed. And if you read the Salesforce help documentation, you can see that they say private listings do not go through a security review, and administrators should inspect the application carefully before determining whether it should be installed within their organization. So this is a really important point, because these private listings, what does this mean? Well, basically anyone who has a Salesforce org can create a package. They can build some custom objects. They can build some in the old world workflow, or now they're building flows and other capabilities, and you can package those together and provide a link for someone to install in their Salesforce org. And so these private listings, if you have them in your org, are definitely worth exploring from a security perspective. Now, there's a few other things you should know about packages. There's managed, unmanaged, and unlocked versions. And so each of these versions has a few little nuances in it. So managed packages are namespaced. So like we talked about before, they've got that prefix on it. And then they are security reviewed by Salesforce if they're on the App Exchange. So it's required. And they have the ability to push upgrades into them. Now, the thing with managed packages, though, is that you can't access the code. You can't actually see the code that's in them. So many of those packages, you may have purchased something from the App Exchange. You can't actually see the code that's inside them. You just get to leverage the functionalities of them. Now, unmanaged packages are a bit different. They don't have that namespace. They aren't security reviewed. It's kind of optional. You can't push the upgrades into them, but you do have access to the code, and that allows you to engage and customize those packages really easily. Now, unlocked packages are namespaced. They don't need to be security reviewed by Salesforce, and they can push upgrades into them. And again, you have access to the code. So the overarching theme here is you need to understand the different types of packages in your org, the risks that come with them, and understand whether your organization wants to adopt those risks, to be honest. So there's a very important point here, though, and that is we don't talk about versions. So versions is something where you can imagine a publisher of a package has updated some of their code and they've released a new version of the product. So they're adding new features and they're releasing new versions. We see this from Salesforce all the time, obviously. But this concept of not really digging in and talking about versions is a very important concept, because as we were digging into these orgs and understanding what's going on from an install package perspective, what we found in 2023 was that 99% of Salesforce orgs had out-of-date packages in them. And on average, there's about 14 packages per org. From our data now, we're actually seeing in the 24 benchmark report, we're seeing 94% of orgs have out-of-date packages in them now. So it's improving a little bit as we're starting to try and get the word out. So the way I like to think about this is there's something happening in the ecosystem that is leading to the fact that almost every single org in the ecosystem has out-of-date install packages in it. Why is this happening? Is this on purpose? Is it, what are the mechanisms that are causing this? And as I dug deeper into this, there's a really clear, obvious reason that this is happening. We all run our lives on these devices. We install apps on these devices. These devices tell us whether the apps are out of date. And since 2006, as you saw on the App Exchange, we've been installing apps into our business for almost 20 years. And now we're at a place where you've never had a way to automatically know whether those apps are out of date for 20 years. And so that means that that unless you've been doing a manual review of versions, there's basically no motivation to go and do those updates, because it's basically going to take a long time. If we think about that from a manual versioning perspective, how would you actually do this? So the average org has about 30 apps in it. So what you would need to do is you need to go to the install packages section of your setup. You would need to navigate to each one of your apps. You'd need to find the version number, and then there's not even a way to click from here into the App Exchange to find that app. You would have to navigate to the App Exchange, search and find that particular app, and then you do a few more clicks to get down into that version number to find the version number that's listed under app details. And so the amazing part about this is that those version numbers are manually updated by the publisher. So during the Traction on Demand days, we publish many apps on the App Exchange, and those are manually updated, and they can be incorrect. There can be newer versions available of your app than what is actually on the App Exchange. Now, if you did this for 30 apps and it takes you a couple minutes for each of those, it's going to take you at least 12, 15 hours to do this if you were actually monitoring your apps over time throughout the year. And what's really crazy about it is that if you have private listings in your org, you can't do this. You can't go look at the version numbers. You have to contact the publisher, or maybe they're sending updates to you in your email, sending updates around new versions. in many scenarios, the person who installed those apps doesn't even exist at the organization anymore. They've left, and maybe those are just landing into nothing, or maybe if they're coming to you, they're going to a spam folder, for example. Either way, it's a cumbersome process, and it's one of the key reasons that versioning that apps are out of date inside of orgs. Some people by choice don't update some of their apps, but this is definitely the key source of it. So why should you care? What are the actual consequences here? Well, security vulnerabilities is one. So obviously, if you've got private listings, that's a key one. But even for apps that were security reviewed, if you haven't been updating them, there might be new updates that are important for your organization. Speed is another consideration too. So if your org is feeling slow and there's certain apps that you use that still have stuff like workflow in them, it's going to be slowing down your org because it's using that legacy automation that's not as fast as the newer automation that Salesforce has provided. And then you might just straight up be missing features inside your org. So you might be having access to an app that's been updated that has new features, and we've even seen scenarios where people were planning custom builds, and they detected a new version of an app available that actually had the features they were planning on building itself. So obviously the real question is, how can AI help in this whole scenario? And that's obviously where Hubbl Technologies fits in. So we're democratizing success across the Salesforce ecosystem. We've got an AI-driven org optimization paired with the first process mining app built on Salesforce. And with regards to the installed packages, we're using this concept. So many people often ask me sort of what this concept of Hubble, why is Hubbl Technologies named Hubble? And it comes after the Hubble telescope, of course. And so this is a video of the Hubble telescope going in and looking at day after day. It goes in and pinpoints different parts of the universe and digs in and understands what's happening and images those parts. And then they do correlations to understand and get new learnings about the areas that they're actually imaging. And so this is the way that Hubbl Diagnostics actually works as well. It connects to Salesforce orgs, understands them, digs into the metadata, and then does machine learning and classification to understand and provide new predictive intelligence to promote success across all the orgs in the ecosystem. And so the Hubble telescope is actually named after Edwin Hubble, who was digging into the Andromeda Nebula at a time when the Milky Way was thought to be was basically thought to be the entire universe. And he discovered new galaxies in the Andromeda Nebula that showed that the universe was much larger than everybody had actually thought. And so the way we like to think of it is that Hubble is basically unlocking all of the effort that people have put into building their Salesforce orgs across the ecosystem so that we can bring predictive intelligence to everyone in the ecosystem and democratize success. So today we're going to be focusing on the installed package assessor from Hubbl Diagnostics and how it actually allows you to automate version detection, for example. So with this capability, it allows you to save time by doing automated app version checks. It allows you to secure, modernize the org with new features by getting those automated updates that are even coming in straight up from your email. So if we take a look, I'm going to transfer and just sort of take a look at the platform itself to give you a sense of what we're talking about here. So Hubbl Diagnostics, you can just get started directly from our site. You can sign up. It takes a couple minutes to sign up and actually scan your org. Once you create an account, you have the ability to run a scan against the org. This account I'm in already has run a series of scans already. Running a scan is very straightforward. You're just putting in a scan name, some straightforward information, and then connecting to your Salesforce org. Once the results come in, we organize them in a way, so you have to think about it, we're analyzing that metadata, understanding the configurations, doing classifications, clustering, machine learning, and predictive intelligence on them, and we're visually documenting it in an interactive manner. And all of this takes you about 2 minutes of effort for you to get access to these types of results. Just to give you a sense of how things look across all the tabs, but we're going to focus today on the packages capability inside of Hubbl Diagnostics. And so What I'm showing you here is for this is the analysis of a single org. And what we can see is that we have packages here, the record counts inside of the packages. So this shows you which packages in the org are being utilized the most. And then overall, you've got the high-level metrics here from the total packages in the org, the ones that are out of date, not secured, and even the ones that are deprecated in the org. And so what's amazing about this is that you can just quickly come in, click on the out-of-date packages, and that will highlight all of the packages in your org that are out of date, and that means that they have new versions available. So you can see how I scroll over and you can see the new versions that are available relative to the versions that you've detected in your org. And so like I said before, if you had 30 orgs or 30 packages in your org, it would take you at least an hour or two to get that done in terms of clicking back and forth in between the app exchange. And this we've completed with about 2 minutes of effort. You can also see the packages that are not security reviewed. And so remember that conversation around managed packages and unmanaged packages. This allows you to see packages that are managed, they're out of date, and they're not even security reviewed. So this is a scenario where, remember, you can't see the code inside of an org, inside of the package, and it hasn't been security reviewed. This is definitely a scenario where you want to explore whether you trust that individual provider and evaluate the security consequences in your org. So that gives you a sense from that package perspective. Oftentimes, once people are identifying packages and they're reviewing packages in general, maybe you're coming into a new Salesforce org and you're just onboarding with the team. This helps you actually dig in deeper into these individual packages as well. So you can see all the package details. You can even get a link out to the app exchange so you can actually get more details on it as well. It's very straightforward. But most importantly, you can see the record counts inside of all of the objects in that package, if it is an object-driven package, obviously. And then you can see the last time that the records were updated in that package as well. So this helps you understand and track adoption there. You can also see those API names for the fields, as well as the field utilization across that package. And what's amazing about this is that with that setting up at the scan, it takes you a couple minutes to set up the scan. You can even schedule it to run monthly. What this means is that you're tracking adoption across all of your packages at the record level, at the object level, all the way down into the field level as well. And this type of field utilization isn't focused just on packages. You can actually look at it from across any field on any object in the org. And for this particular org, there's 1,000 objects in it, and it took you 2 minutes of effort to run field utilization across every single object in the org. So it gives you a sense of how that app versioning works. Feel free to dig in if you have any questions. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. We're detecting versions of apps that are out in the ecosystem that are newer than yours and giving you that ability to filter against those. All right, so now we've gone through that automated version detection. We've gone into the package deep dive where we're looking at field utilization and the package metadata. There's a really key point we were talking about as well is around speed, so modernization. So what we do inside of Hubble as well is we automatically calculate the amount of declarative automation you have in those older automations like workflow and process builder relative to the amount of flow that you have. And this basically, the reason we need to do this is because it helps organizations understand that they need to move into the newer automations. For example, flow is much faster than workflow. And so this is actual numbers from a real customer where before they had done the migration to flow, there was up to 15,000 hours per year of users watching records spin as they were saving those records due to all the legacy automation inside of their org. And so that concept of being able to understand the workflow and the inside of the org, and then that's sort of the namespace automation perspective. So here's on the homepage that concept of migrating and or gamifying the migration to flow. But let's say if I want to speed up my org, and I have packages in my org that are slowing me down, if you go to the object automation tab inside of Hubble, you can see a view of Salesforce you've never seen before, where each circle is an object that has record triggered automation. The bigger the circle, the more automation on top of it. So it's kind of your hotspots of automation. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see the breakdown by the automation types. And so you can see the darker purple color is namespaced automation versus the non-namespaced. And so thinking back to our conversation earlier, these darker purple ones are actually coming from packages. And you can see in this org, there's actually some workflow that's coming from packages. And so this is a really straightforward way to understand, these packages might actually be slowing down your org. You can filter this down by automation, just show me the ones that are active, for example. So it looks like we do have some active workflow rules that should be migrated over to Flow. This is even more important now in the world of Agentforce because agents can't use workflow in their automations as an agent action. You need to be using flows there. All right, so that gives you a sense of how you can detect a package. And obviously, because we have out-of-date packages in here, this is why these workflows are still in here. And maybe if you upgraded some of these packages, you would actually be able to identify and remediate that old legacy automation and speed up your org. All right. Keeping moving forward, now you might have noticed that concept of package insights. So package insights is an AI-driven functionality that allows you to get architect-level insights into your org about packages and apps that might be useful for your business. And so the way this works is that Hubbl Diagnostics is a machine learning platform. So what you're seeing here is this concept of clustering. So we look at the metadata in the way the business is set up, and then the machine actually clusters these metadata setups nearest neighbors with each other. And so we don't know what these clusters are, but if we dig in, we can understand that this cluster that has been identified is from financial services. These ones are nonprofits, and these ones are banking, for example. And this is just a small subset of data, so you can visualize what this whole concept means. And so the way this works, like if you sort of move forward, you saw that concept of Hubble, the Hubble telescope going to the next galaxy. When it goes to the next Salesforce org, Hubbl Diagnostics lands the setup within one of these clusters, and then that allows us to provide better predictive intelligence to that customer to make their org even more successful. And so this is really cool because when you go from org to org, you get all kinds of different recommendations around what the apps could be that could be useful for that particular organization. And so this is a data-driven approach. I mean, almost think about it as like when Netflix for your business, basically. Some people watch, other people watch these movies, you might be interested in this movie. So other people use these types of apps, you might be interested in these apps as well. And so this is a powerful set of recommendations that come to your business. And what's really cool about it is that it's completely interactive. And we're providing Trailblazers with the ability to provide feedback on these recommendations so that the algorithm keeps getting better and better with regards to the recommendations that are going into each of these orgs. So it's a completely new way to think about how we can drive value to an organization based on the way that the business is set up in the org. Now, there's one last piece, which is the security side of things. So we talked about the fact that namespaced and non-namespaced code can have security issues. And if you have an old, out-of-date package, you might have security issues inside of your org. So Hubbl Diagnostics, because we uncovered this a few years ago, we offered a completely free custom code security scan. And I mean, I just want to be very clear. This is a completely free custom code security scan that anyone can leverage in the Salesforce ecosystem. It's very straightforward. Is inside of the custom code tab, what we're doing is we're leveraging the Salesforce Code Analyzer to analyze all of the custom code in the org, whether it's Apex, classes, components, LWC, you name it. And so what it does is it shows you an executive level visualization of all the results of the code analyzer. And then what it does is it allows you to see the different rule violations that have occurred. And so here I'm clicking into the security slice. And so in the security slice, I see there's a set of violations. For example, SOQL injection issues are in here. So SOQL injection issues are that scenario where a hacker, if you had this in Experience Cloud, a hacker could break into your org and steal contact information from your Experience Cloud if it was set up incorrectly. This is a critical, obviously, absolutely critical issue inside of the ecosystem. We see tons of security issues inside of orgs. And what's amazing about this is you can come in and remember that concept of namespace versus non-namespaced. We know that there's packages that are out of date in this org. And sure enough, when you go into the custom code area, you can look at your namespace packages, namespace code, and you see a whole series of violations that are in here based on that namespaced code. And this allows you to get an understanding all the way down into the it allows you to get all the way down into the line item level of the issues that are in that specific code as well. And so you can see, putting this all together, you're able to quickly automatically detect whether your packages are out of date. You're able to understand whether there's security issues associated to that. And even better, you don't even need to know all these rules and understand all of these rules. What Hubbl Diagnostics is doing is it's looking through all that metadata, it's putting it through scoring thresholds and automatically generating these issues and providing you recommendations to address those. And most importantly, we rank them by the severity of the issue and the level of effort to address them. So this is basically your personalized game plan to address these issues inside of your org, whether it's out-of-date packages, non-security review packages, whether it's just custom code issues that are inside of your org. But it's not all just about these security issues. There's really straightforward recommendations, things like being able to, for example, this one, considering a global pick list. So we look at all the pick list values in your org and help you understand that there's ones that are matching. If you're just coming into an organization, an org's been around for many years, other people have configured it. Now with global value sets, you'd be able to manage that org much better. So it gives you a sense of how diagnostics is rolling that all up into a singular view that helps you action in your org. And the way, beyond just giving you these recommendations, we can dig into details around where this is aligned inside of the well-architected framework, as well as looking at documentation that's associated with that. All right. So that gives you a sense of how, from the installed package assessor, we can understand whether we have security issues in those outdated packages or those non-security review packages. Now, remember, all the way back to that table around managed packages, unlocked packages, and unmanaged packages, the code analysis allows you to actually dig in and look at some of those packages where we have access to the code. And remember, Salesforce even says in their help documentation that administrators should take a look at the code and make sure that there's no security issues inside of that code. And Hubble makes that really straightforward and easy for you to do. And it's free. So overall, you've seen that structure where we've done the severity versus the level of effort. This is a really straightforward process that admins across the entire ecosystem are leveraging to get a sense of not only the issues that might be coming from their packages, but a lot of Salesforce product owners use that capability, that executive level view of the custom code, to basically monitor the work that's being done in their org, whether it's coming from subcontractors, contractors, consulting partners, as well as their own team as well. And what's really cool about it is that you can actually translate this over time. So remember, Hubble is a monitoring product, so you can actually watch this over time. So we can translate that that matrix that you saw there, the high severity issues, and do this over time. So each one of these dots is a new scan in the org. So there were some high severity issues uncovered due to some out-of-date packages. They spun up a project to update those packages and get those fixed. And now you can see that those issues are no longer there. And here's the proactive monitoring aspect of Hubble, where you can see we've got some issues jumping up. And then we can actually see inside of the issues lifecycle the new issues that have been uncovered inside of this particular time frame. And this allows your team to proactively monitor your Salesforce org and maintain its health. Even better, you can even do this on a multi-org monitoring view. So you can actually monitor your entire environment with ease, and it allows you to get a sense, if you're a consulting partner working with a whole bunch of orgs, or maybe you're in a center of excellence that's managing, 10, 100 Salesforce orgs inside of your organization, you can actually do this all from a single interface and see all of your orgs all at once. So overall, just wrapping back up into what we were talking about earlier around those 24,000 metadata items on average. If you look at how Hubbl Diagnostics as a whole, regardless, we've focused on the package assessor today, but overall, it would take 4 days just to look at the metadata inside of your org, and if you did that monthly, it would take you 10 weeks of time without any analysis, any visualization, no interactive dashboards, no predictive intelligence or machine learning to manually collate all those results, and it would take even longer. So Hubble reduces this down to like 1 minute of effort. You can literally go to get started right now and create your account within 2 minutes. You would be setting up your scan would be running. So overall productivity gains are through the roof. You can automate audits, you can get proprietary recommendations, communicate better, and that's a really key one that a lot of people really dig into. The visual interactive documentation of your Salesforce org allows you to onboard your team better and just communicate better throughout your organization. So one last point, just to sort of drive things home, I just want you to install packages are amazing and they can maximize the value in your Salesforce investment, but they do require proper maintenance to avoid straight up just missing features, having a slow org because you haven't migrated those workflow across, and straight out the concept of unintended risks as well due to security issues. So Hubble's AI can obviously help, and if you want to get started, you can get started at Hubbl.com. We've talked today entirely around diagnostics. The Hubbl Technologies platform we've also built the first ever Salesforce process mining application, which allows you to pinpoint areas where you can be building new automations to make your processes more optimal, and even identify areas where Agentforce might be interesting. And then you can also just do a before-after view of your implementations, which is really, really powerful. Accessing this for your organization, they're priced at $5,000 per year for per org, with unlimited seats across that. And so it's $10,000 per year for org, and we have a 50% discount for nonprofits. If you're a consulting partner who's interested in leveraging this technology across your consultants or your large enterprise with a COE, we can talk about bulk discounting across those orgs as well. And so with that, I'll thank you for your time and attention. Open to any other questions or anything that everyone has. Really appreciate your time. Like I said at the beginning, the end of year Salesforce is always a special time. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of excitement coming. We're moving into Trailblazer DX as well, and we're going to start seeing a lot of incredible innovations coming out. And so really excited and really appreciate you taking your time today to learn about what we're up to at Hubbl Technologies.